Lastly, we are going to look at two-step equations. So typically when we think about two-step equations, we end up doing, first, we're using addition and subtraction to get rid of the constant that's on the side with our variable. And then second, we use multiplication or division to remove the coefficient that's directly attached to our variable. So more often than not, this is the process we will use. I'm going to separate these a little bit with my pen, and then we're going to just work through them. So the first example is 14 plus 9m equals negative 13. So I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to look and see which one my constant is. I see that this 14 is my constant. I'm going to subtract that away because we don't want it with our variable. I'm going to bring down my 9m. I'm going to subtract 14 from negative 13, so I'm getting more negative, and I'm going to get negative 27. Now I want to get rid of the coefficient attached to my m, which is 9. So I'm going to divide by 9. Negative 27 divided by 9 gives me negative 3. So notice we're just starting with addition or subtraction of the number that's not attached to our variable. And then once the variable term is on a side by itself, then we do multiplication and division. So same thing for example 2. We have negative 12 equals n divided by 2 minus 6. So I'm going to draw my line. I see that there's a minus 6 on the side with our variable. So in order to get rid of minus 6, we're going to do plus 6. Those cancel each other out. I do negative 12 plus 6, and I get negative 6 equals n over 2. In order to get rid of this fraction, remember that this denominator is just working like a divided by 2. So we're going to multiply by 2. Those cancel out, and I get negative 12 equals n. This problem, again, we're just trying to get a lot of practice in our typical two-step equation. We have 1/2 b minus 16 equals negative 4. So I'm going to draw my line. I know that there's a minus 16 on the same side as my variable. So in order to get rid of minus 16, I need to add 16. Minus 16 and plus 16 cancel out. So all I have left on this side is half of b. Negative 4 plus 16 gives me positive 12. I have a coefficient of 1/2. So what I'm going to do is divide by 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1. Those cancel out, and we get b equals 24. Lastly, we have 2/3 x plus 19 equals 35. We have a plus 19 on the same side as our variable. So to get rid of plus 19, we have to subtract 19. We're just working with inverse operations. If I do that to one side, I need to do it to the other. I'm going to bring down my 2/3 x. Those canceled each other out. Equals, I'm going to do some long subtraction here, 16. I have 16. What I need to do is divide by 2/3. Remember, dividing by 2/3 is the same thing as multiplying by the flipped fraction. So it would be the same thing as multiplying by 3/2. So just to see this worked out, I'm going to show you my calculator that is true. So I can see that 16 divided by 2/3 gives me 24, which is what we said when we say we did keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep 16, change my symbol from division to multiplication, flip my fraction. So the 3 is now the numerator, and I get the same thing. So x equals 24. The thing that's tricky about two-step equations is they're not always going to give you that easy to look at two-step equation. So the one where it's very clear, you do your addition and subtraction first and then your multiplication and division. So what we're doing in those two-step equations is we're actually just doing PEMDAS backwards. So we do our addition and subtraction first, then our multiplication and division, and then hypothetically, if we had exponents, we would do that, and then we would do our parentheses. So that's really important to keep in mind when you are given a two-step equation that doesn't quite look like what we are used to. For example, this first problem here, I know that everything on the top of this expression, so x plus 2, is over 8. So x plus 2 as a whole is divided by 8. So when you have something like this, you know there are invisible parentheses at the top here. So this is going to change the way we look at the equation, because instead of doing subtraction first, so instead of subtracting 2 from both sides to get rid of this 2, which would just give me the wrong answer, I'm going to notice that if I'm doing reverse PEMDAS, that I've got addition and subtraction, but that's inside of my parentheses. The thing I have to do before I can do that is my multiplication or division. So my first step in this example would be to get rid of the divided by 8. So what I need to do in order to get rid of the divided by 8 is multiply both sides by 8. So I'm multiplying by 8 to get this x plus 2 by itself. 3 times 8 is 24. Now I can do those parentheses, so now I can do the addition and subtraction. So x plus 2 equals 24. We still have our line drawn down. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. The 2 plus 2 cancels out from minus 2, and I get x equals 22. Again, this is meant as a review, so if this is not familiar to you, I will tag a couple of other YouTube videos that will go more into detail about two-step equations in the special cases, but it's really important to think about the fact that we're just reversing PEMDAS when we are solving algebraic equations. So we have one more example to look at. This one says 3, then we have our parentheses, x minus 6, close our parentheses, equals 18. So I know I'm doing my reverse PEMDAS, so I'm checking for addition and subtraction. That's not in parentheses, and that doesn't exist. Then I see my multiplication and division, so I know I want to get rid of this multiplication. To get rid of times 3, I need to divide by 3. I get x minus 6 equals 6. And what I need to think about here is that I could have done the distributive property and just followed my normal steps, but I'm just trying to show you how reverse PEMDAS works. So I divided both sides by 3, And now I have x minus 6 equals 6. I need to add 6 to both sides to get rid of this minus 6, and I get x equals 12.